and welcome back to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle. For our first guest today, we have Deb Stathis, who's a personal and professional success coach. And she's here today to talk to us about steps to success. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda.
So you talk about going from trauma to opportunities.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Absolutely. So trauma provides us with a unique position where we can actually create opportunities. And what we do there is we shift our focus to look at the lesson, what we've learned within that experience of trauma, challenge, adversity, stress as well. And then what we can do is we shift our focus to that lesson, what we've learned, and we then choose to use the knowledge that we have gained there to improve ourselves and our life. I actually call this a tragic opportunity. So the tragedy is the stress, challenge, emotions, pain, experience. The opportunity comes from how we choose to focus on the learning and improve ourselves and our life.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Can you tell us a bit more then about from there going with some of those steps that you talk about?
Oh, absolutely. Creating, like I said, what I call a tragic opportunity is a two-step process. So we start off with personal assessment. So personal assessment is a review of ourself, our beliefs, our behaviours and our emotions. And the aim is to develop a deeper understanding into ourself and into our trauma and our challenges and the way we have interpreted them in order to then shift our perspective for the better and learn about ourselves. The next step is the action plan, which is key. So the action plan is then taking the knowledge that we gain in personal assessment and using that to improve ourselves, make better decisions and choices, and improve all areas of our life.
Okay, what would be an example of something, for instance, that comes up in daily life that you could say, this is how I can look at it differently? Or
it actually comes up every single day. And I create tragic opportunities for myself all the time when I'm particularly getting very stressed out, perhaps with trying to juggle everything. I'm a mum of 2 young children, and it can be really hard sometimes to just get out of the door, and you've got 2 screaming children and you've got to get to a meeting on time, you've maybe forgotten your briefcase or whatever it is. And it's easy to think, oh God, nothing ever goes my way. Or you can flip and say, okay, this feeling right now, what is it doing? Is it giving me the opportunity to think about why I'm acting this way? What is it that is making me so frantic? Is it the sound of the children? Like for myself, I've been through a lot of trauma, so sometimes a lot of loud noises when my children get very frantic actually sparks a bit of the PTSD. So for me, I need to stop for a moment and take that opportunity to grow and say, they're children. This is not noise that is negative. This is positive noise. Actually, they're beautiful, fun children. If I run with this, I'll actually get out of the door quicker. So the opportunity is to get them on board, learn about why I'm getting frantic in that scenario, and actually improve the environment and get out the door happily instead of frantically.
How can we have, for the viewers, what could they do in their daily lives to create success from trauma? What did you talk about?
What's really important is self-reflection and thinking about how and why we do things, and that's where the two-step process comes in. So when we're faced with a challenge, stress, trauma, taking that time to sit and reflect on why we made certain decisions and why we feel the way we do in certain situations enables us to gain incredible insight into ourselves and into how and why we do things. By doing so, we can identify what serves us and what doesn't. This then enables us to make better decisions for ourselves, for our life, to improve our relationships, because we understand where perhaps we don't have the most empowered perspective, or perhaps our perspective has been warped due to stress, trauma, our previous experiences, childhood, etc. So we can really use that knowledge to change every day of our life and every aspect of our life.
For our viewers out there, how would people apply this in their life? What would be the top tip that you would suggest to them?
The top tip is taking action. So we can do as much personal development and assessment as we like, and that's great. However, if we don't take action, if we don't change things that we do every single day and actively work on ourselves and change our perspective, nothing will change in our life. So what it's really important to remember is that it doesn't really matter, for lack of a better way of saying it, what's happened in our childhood or what trauma and stress we've had. We actually can be empowered to change that and have a happy and fulfilled future by taking action to change how we behave every day and the way we view life by, using the knowledge that we gain by looking into ourselves.
Oh, thanks so much, Deb, for that.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. And for more information on Deb's status and steps to success, please go to our website healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. Now we'll go to break, and after the break we'll be back with more wonderful topics to share. Welcome back. Now we have Robin O'Connell, our funeral celebrant, and talking to us today about supporting families through pregnancy and loss. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you.
And Robin, may I ask you, what led you to be interested in this subject?
So my daughter died 40 years ago. She was nearly 10 months old, and I found that people just didn't know what to do with me. They'd cross the street rather than talk to me. They'd avoid talking about her, or I'd become the supporting person and support them when I told them the bad news. So it led me to a path of grief education, and then finally a funeral celebrant 17 years ago.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And then, so what would be we hear the term stillbirth and miscarriage. What would be the correct term to use?
So it depends how far the gestation is. So under 20 weeks is classed as a miscarriage, and over 20 weeks is classed as a stillbirth. And the reason for that is that over 20 weeks the birth is registered. They can either go for a funeral or a burial or just have a direct cremation, but something must be done with the baby at that point in time. And there's lots of support out there. There's a foundation now that will help families that are in crisis, because we're not expecting a baby to die. So often families can be left unaware with that as well. So there is support around for families who have any sort of pregnancy loss. But I think one of the main things is that people don't know how to handle people when they've had a pregnancy loss. And we have that, what they call, that 12-week rule, where families are said, don't tell anyone till you're 3 months, and that way then, you don't kind of if anything goes wrong. But in actual fact, those parents need support. If they've been longing for that baby and they're 2 months pregnant, they want to tell the world. And there's this big thing about, oh no, wait till 3 months because you never know what happens. 1 in 4 pregnancies in Australia ends. So it's common. And when people have experienced it and they start telling people about it, they suddenly find that there are all these other people who've had that experience but never said anything. They've never shared that experience because it wasn't talked about. And we need to start the conversation. And lots of people are trying to do that. You might have noticed on October the 15th, this year and in a few previous years, there are pink and blue things that go up on buildings. So in different states, there were different buildings all over Australia that were lit up in pink and blue for Pregnancy Infant Loss Day, which is an international day. For people to feel free that even if they're only 6 weeks pregnant, that they can share that joy with others, even if it doesn't go right. Because at least then they're acknowledged that, people are reluctant to even say, oh, I actually had a miscarriage at 6 weeks, but it was only 6 weeks. But to them, that was a baby. I know a family who had 11 pregnancy losses, and every one of those pregnancies, no matter how soon, as soon as they got those 2 little lines, as soon as they got those lines, they wanted to shout it to the world, because it's important to them that their babies are recognised.
Well, for both parents, I suppose, particularly women with the hormones racing, that's a loss no matter what goes on, and and then the men would be feeling it as supporters of the.
And I think that's where we let them down all the time, because we always say, so how's the wife doing? And we don't say, how are you doing? How do you feel about this? It was your baby too. but they think because the wife is the one who is pregnant, that that's the one who's going to be feeling it more. And two people decide to have a baby. And it's really important that dads are recognised as well.
And I suppose for in same-sex marriages, it plays out as well. There's the other partner is still feeling that.
Yes, yes. And it's, you know, people don't go off and say, oh, I think I'll have a baby and I'll go home and tell my husband tomorrow. You know, they talk about it, they plan, they have dreams, they have hopes for that baby. And those dreams and hopes are shattered. So we need to do more as a society to be able to say, you know, it's okay to talk about it. You know, if you know the day that the baby was born, you know, remember it, put it in your diary for next year. Give the person a call and say, hey, how are you doing today? I know today was the day that Noah was born. You know, it's real, those little things mean so much. And often we're thinking them. You know, so I met up with a family member who I hadn't seen for many, many years. And she put her hand on me and she said, you know, I think of you every 7th of August, which would have been Rebecca's birthday. And I thought, that's fantastic, but I would have loved to have known that you did that. I only found out like 20 years later that every year she thinks of her. And that would have meant so much to me.
Oh, absolutely. So then, what would you say is a take-home message for our viewers to know how they can support others?
Oh, the most important thing is you are not alone. And I think that's the hardest part, is that isolation of thinking you're so alone, it's only you, maybe 40 of your closest family that are affected by a pregnancy loss or an infant loss. And it's not a very broad spectrum of people. And people hear about it. That, you know, might mention it to somebody that you work with and they'll go, oh, that's sad. But it's a fleeting thought. And then they go on with their lives where your life has been irreversibly changed.
Those people don't know how to have the discussion, really, do they?
No, and we need to be more comfortable with having that discussion. We need to ask the questions of, you know, what were you looking forward to? What were the things that you wanted to happen? So they get a chance to voice them because they've been in their head.
And Robin, what would be some tips for our viewers from today?
Remember them at Christmas. So have a candle on the table, do something like that. Remember them on birthdays, give people a call. Just be able to be with them and let them talk and say, how do you feel? And then say, but how do you really feel? Because we will naturally say, I'm okay. But just ask how they really feel. And you might just be surprised at their answer. Don't worry if it brings tears. The tears were there anyway. All you've done is to help release them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we'll go to break now. But before break, just for any more information on pregnancy and loss and supporting those people experiencing that, then please go to our website healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au and there'll be more information on Robin. Welcome back, and next we have Helen Mack back with us for the third in her series about optimising outcomes, and today it's about maintaining momentum. So over to you really, Helen. How do we maintain momentum?
Isn't it hard? Sometimes we get things going, we just get started and then something gets in our way and we grind to a halt. Or it just feels so hard that we never even get going in the first place. So maximising momentum is about taking advantage of the little improvements, of the little successes that we have along the way. So the idea here is one of the important elements is celebrating success, even tiny wee ones. Often we wait to celebrate until a big thing has happened, until we've achieved something wonderful and marvellous, and it just gets so hard to keep going because the good goals, the big goals that we achieve during our lives, whether that be a community goal, a family goal, a health goal, a wealth goal, whatever, they're not going to happen overnight. The big ones take time and effort. If we don't take time out along the way to go, yay, I made a tiny step forward. Yay, I made that adjustment. If we don't celebrate along the way, then it can very much feel like a grind. So maximising momentum is partially about celebrating the baby steps along the way and not waiting until the end for the big party. As you and I know, sometimes goals change. If you wait till the end, you might not get to the end that you thought it was going to be. You might have had a detour and end up in a completely different outcome in terms of what you want to be able to celebrate. So as a very small example, I got married in isolation. So we had all kinds of plans for this fabulous wedding ceremony that we were going to have, and it ended up being me and my beautiful new husband and 8 friends in a library at his farm. It was wonderful. But if we had only chosen to celebrate the big event, then we wouldn't have been celebrating the little wins along the way, the little pieces of the puzzle that fell in. The fact that my dress arrived 48 hours before the wedding, that was a celebration. So all of those little pieces kept us going at a time when sometimes it felt really, really hard. We need to make sure that we're recognising our efforts and the efforts of others in our team, our crew, our family, our group. Recognising other people's efforts can also help our momentum build and grow.
It can even be, because I was just tuned into that, I kind of heard a lot of this stuff, and then I thought, what really clicked with me was something like, and I'm sure you use this, is like giving yourself a treat when you get to a certain stage, or really celebrating it in a way that is important for you.
And what you've said there is perfect. What's important to you. So what you might use to celebrate and what someone else might use to celebrate can be 2 completely different things. And I think we also have an unfortunate habit of deciding that we're going to celebrate with big stuff. So as an example, I'm a reader, I love reading, and so a treat could be just spending an hour with a book, curled up in a corner, or it could be going and buying a book, whether that be online or wandering to a bookshop. One of my very good friends and business partners, what he does is when he's achieved a small goal that he wants to celebrate, he takes himself off to the movies. He has 3 young children. He goes to the movies to watch a U-Butte, boys kind of adventure flick, no children, popcorn, relax, do nothing for a couple of hours, and then comes out refreshed and ready to take the next step. So there's no rules about what the celebration has to be.
No, that's wonderful. It just is what boosts your optimism, isn't
Correct.
it?
What makes you feel good, yeah.
Great. How we can maintain an optimistic attitude, especially, I mean, there's always changes happening in life. We always have the things evolving, as you've been sharing in previous segments. And how can we maintain that?
So when we're looking at maintaining momentum, the optimistic attitude is clearly part of it. We need to be able to roll with the punches. We need to deal with the ups and downs. I think if life was just flat and everything was the same all the time, it would be quite boring. But we do have to deal with peaks and troughs. We have to deal with detours and obstacles. And to maintain momentum, we have to do 2 things simultaneously. We have to keep our eye on the prize. So we have to keep one eye, if you like, on the ultimate goal, and keep checking that we're still on path for that, or has the detour taken us somewhere we like? And then the second piece is that we need to keep an eye on the road ahead of us. Is there a dirty great big hole? Do we need to detour? Are there things that we need to adjust so that we don't have too many troughs? Because sometimes the troughs that we fall in are of our own making. Sometimes we need to make sure that we don't fall into those troughs. But if we do, that's okay. We're allowed to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and take the next step.
Such a thing as too much of a good thing, too much momentum about going forward?
Yeah, I think sometimes if we're changing too fast or taking on too many new things, our system goes into shock. And so too much momentum, too much change can be exhausting. So it's great to really get yourself going, but make sure that you're monitoring your energy levels. Make sure that you are filling yourself up both with food and water, like the general, nutrition type things, but also with hanging out with good people, putting in some positive or affirming information into your head, making sure that you're not spending time with people who are naysayers about your goal. So too much momentum can be exhausting, and if we get too fast, we sometimes just need to go, okay, I just need a time out. Sometimes too much momentum will take us past the point where we should have made an adjustment, and when we end up at the other end of the road, we'll go, this isn't quite where I want it to be.
And easy to go off course then, I suppose, and go off on the path and suddenly realise that that's not really a good feeling for me.
That's right. If we go back to our questions from last time, just checking in with the why. Why was I doing this in the first place is a good way to check. And from years ago, I remember going to a training around goal setting in the business, in the corporate kind of sense, and they said it's all very good to be climbing the ladder, but every now and then you have to make sure that it's leaning up against the right wall.
Thank you, Helen. And we'll finish the show now on that. And for more information on Helen Mack and optimising outcomes and maintaining your momentum, then please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And we'll be back with Helen next time talking about how to maintain an optimistic mindset.